Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Guilty as Charged podcast presented by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. We are live today to do a fundraiser Q&A for our good friend of the show, Anthony Hopper, who's going through some tough times right now. So I have posted the link to his GoFundMe if you want to go help out. Otherwise, we will be taking questions from YouTube. No Patreon questions today. So if you feel like helping Anthony out, definitely use the super chat questions, and we'll be sure to donate all of the proceeds from the super chats today to helping out Anthony. So joining me as always are my guys Tyler and Alex. Alex, we'll start with you, man. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Just happy to help Bolt fam out in any way we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Anthony's been a longtime supporter of the show. Obviously, he's a veteran as well, so he's a great dude. I think he actually won our very first giveaway, if I'm not mistaken. Won a Derwin James jersey right before they switched to the new one. So he's got one of the last Derwin James jerseys of the old design. So shout out to Anthony. Happy to help him out. Tyler, how are you doing today, man?
Doing pretty well. Like Alex said, just happy to be here to help another member of the Bolt family. I believe so far with our live streams and these fundraisers, we've raised like $3,000 so far in our previous live streams. So I don't expect that to happen again today. We had a very generous donor last time, but anything we can do to raise awareness or help out Anthony because he's been there since the beginning, love to help. So here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, if you're just joining us, be sure to use the super chat feature, and we'll donate all of the funds from today's show to Anthony's cause. So now is the time to ask any questions. If you have one, please send us our way. Otherwise, I think today we probably should start with the Austin Ekeler news. He is listed as questionable. Coach Brandon Staley said that he looked phenomenal on Monday and Wednesday when they had practices. Even said he looked amazing in his cuts, but then was apparently really sore from practice on Wednesday, so they held him out on Thursday and Friday. He's got a hip injury, even though Austin Ekeler said on Wednesday that he's feeling the best he has all season. So, Tyler, what are you making of this whole Austin Ekeler situation? Do you think it's more of the staff being precautionary, or do you think that he's legitimately has a chance to not play on Sunday, tomorrow?
Either. I have no idea because he did not practice the last 2 days, and the reason they gave was sore. Like, how bad is sore? How sore is your hip to not be practicing the last 2 days? So, if he's sore, then sure, it's precautionary. I do think he suits up, but then the do not practices is very, very concerning. So, I think he plays. I think it's now just a limited capacity, but we'll see. I don't know what sore means. We've seen cramp turn into months. So I hopefully sore does not turn into months as well. I think he'll be okay. Like Zach is saying in the chat, that they're being safe. And I feel like that he's a guy as a running back and as a guy with an injury history who does not shoulder a ton of carries in his season. He does seem like a guy who the Chargers would really protect, especially with the RB2s behind him not being that great. So I could see this being a very safe, just stay healthy. We'll get you to Sunday move. I'm optimistic that he plays, but not optimistic that he plays the entire game, or at least in a full capacity.
Yeah, I have no idea what Austin Ekeler's health is. This goes back to like the whole thing I was saying on that show where I was like, I don't know, maybe we could get a little bit of openness about that stuff. No, didn't happen. So we're back to Austin Ekeler being added midweek with a hip injury. I have no idea. It sounds like he'll play in a limited capacity, but I really don't know like what that even means. That can mean he really plays the whole game, or that could just mean they really want him to like take a back seat on this one. Either way, not really a great thing to have this happen, especially because of how I think necessary he is for this game and the lack of production we've talked about at RB2 all season. So this is a really unfortunate, and I don't know how they're going to really adjust, especially if he does have to miss the game.
Yeah, and a hip injury is no joke for a running back. We've seen throughout time. Thank you, Tyler Zwab, for the first super chat of the day, helping out Anthony Hopper's family. So again, if you have questions or just want to donate to Anthony's cause, please use the super chat feature. Yeah, so the hip injury is definitely a little bit concerning. And it's never a good sign when a player is added on Thursday of the same week and after practicing on Wednesday. So it could definitely be precautionary. Like we've seen that with Joey Bosa, we've seen that with Mike Williams, and this could definitely be that. But at the same time, like it's hard not to be concerned about this because we've seen such little success from the other running backs. Like there were some people yesterday on Twitter trying to say like, oh, Drew Tranquil is more important or Justin Jones is more important. Listen, like the Austin Eckler, I think, in my opinion, is one of the most 5 valuable Chargers on the team, like team as a whole, because he just gives you so much versatility, and he's the only running back. Like, I guess the passing game would be okay with Justin Jackson, like he's been okay in that regard. But the 3 running backs outside of Eckler have averaged like 2.7 yards per carry. There's just no juice back there, and so I think, this is going to be a very difficult game to win if you do not have Austin Eckler, because he provides that versatility. And if you take him out of the passing game, that's so much more attention on Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. It's less resources that you have to worry about out of the backfield. The Patriots linebackers have not been great in coverage, but if you don't have that threat of the running back doing that, then the linebackers can just chill at the sticks. They can, play zone. They don't have to worry about guarding the running backs all that much. They can just go make plays. So potentially not having Austin Eckler is huge in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with like the general principle that like running backs don't matter, but this specific running back does matter. I mean, considering what they have behind him and how the Chargers use them, because not every running back is used in both the passing game and the running game, but like it's just how he spreads the field. Because like Steven said, I think last podcast, they can kind of double bracket and just go, all right, well, we're kind of going to double cover Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and take that away and make Jared Cook beat us, who's had his problems with drops, right? So there's stuff like that that, potentially Bill Belichick can do if Austin Eckler is not playing, or, it becomes evident during the game that he's not close to 100%. I do think it's funny that Thomas Martinez says here that it's just Staley trying to mess with Belichick when Belichick put 14 guys on the injury report yesterday and listed them all as questionable with limited practice. I'm like, Belichick's still the king of that. I don't think Brandon Staley can mess with him yet.
No, it's ridiculous. Every single time the Chargers play the Patriots, it's like, oh, here's an injury report of 17 players. Like,
it's every time the Patriots play anyone.
True, very true. I think Devin McCourty is really like the only one with a legitimate injury,
out, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he was declared out, but yeah. So I guess this is like a difficult question because I don't even know, but who's getting the most carries tomorrow if Austin Eckler is not playing?
Justin Herbert. I'm pretty sure.
Honestly, would not be surprised. I guess I missed when Joe Lombardi on Thursday apparently said that they want to get Herbert more action in the he called it the quarterback movement kind of game, which is good. Like that's you have Justin Herbert who runs a 4.68, like that should make sense. But we haven't really seen much of that, so it is going to be interesting to see how that happens.
I mean, I guess it would be Justin Jackson, but like you could tell me that like any of the 3 of them led the team with 7 carries, and I'd believe you. Like, because I really do think if Austin Eckler doesn't play tomorrow, they're gonna have to like just pull the Cliff Kingsbury and be like, all right, fuck it, we're not running the ball at all.
Yes.
Like that's what they're gonna have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tweeted that earlier. Like, if Eckler's not playing, just go 5 wides. Like, even if it's Andre Roberts, you can use the tight ends some, but just live in empty and use the short passing game as a pseudo running game. Like, you can do some quarterback powers if you want, but this is not going to be fun.
Call up Jason Moore for a 6 receiver. Maybe 2.
Yeah, you do that if you want. It could be Austin Prohl for all I care. Just spread the field, dink and dunk, and I think that would be fine. But again, that depends if Austin Eckler is playing or not. So Anthony Hopper is in the chat right now. So shout out to Anthony, Envy Talent, and Tyler's parents holding down the fort with the super chat. So we all understand that tough times happen. So if you feel so inclined, please use the super chat feature to donate towards Anthony's cause. And Envy has a question. Unsure if the trade deadline has passed, but with the Eckler injury highlighting our lack of running back talent, would you now consider a Marlon Mack trade? So the trade deadline is on Tuesday. So that will give the Chargers and everybody else this last weekend to decide if they want to make a trade. You know, there have been some more names that have come up as well as Deshaun Jackson. But given Eckler's injury and the lack of uncertainty, if the running backs this weekend in Eckler's absence, you know, just put out a stinker, are we then in favor of trading for a running back? Doesn't have to be Marlon Mack. It could be Philip Lindsay, who's potentially considered available as well. But Tyler, what do you think about potentially trading for a running back after Eckler's injury?
I don't know. It's tough. I haven't watched as much of the offensive line as you had, but watching them at least on first down the last week or two, it's not like it's all on the running back. Like just particularly on first down, defenses have been playing very well, or the Chargers just haven't been able to block. Maybe that's to the right, maybe that's inside, maybe that's outside of Rashawn Slater. You know, talk to Arjun, and there's no difference between running left and running right because nothing's really working, and then nothing's obviously working on first down. So while they could trade for another running back or acquire some other running back in some way, that's not always like completely part of the problem. Like, even on first down, Eckler is kind of struggling. The defense is just, for some reason, able to stop them. The offensive line can't block. Could they get a little bit better? Could they go from 3 yards per carry on first down to 3.5? Sure. Like I'm sure. I think a running back could help with that. I just don't think that's completely the problem. I don't think everything gets fixed. But if Eckler is hurt, then yeah, you have to sign somebody else or trade for somebody else because if it's long term, obviously, at least a couple of weeks, you know, you just can't. Well, I take that back because if it's not that long term, the teams that they're playing, I'm not really super concerned with. Like they play the Eagles next week. I'm not going to go out and have to trade for Marlon Mack to beat the Eagles or beat the Broncos and maybe the Vikings. But some of these teams I'm just not super afraid of. So if Eckler can come back in a time where, you know, by the next Chiefs game or by maybe the Raiders game, if it's that bad, and I don't think it is, then maybe I'm not trading for one.
I would kind of do it if Austin Eckler isn't injured. Like, I mean, at this point, like they just need more juice back there. Justin Jackson's not getting it done. Plus, he gets injured like most of the time that he plays, unfortunately. Even though I do think he is the second best running back on the team in that regard, like it's an availability issue for him. Yeah, I mean, I like it would be different if Larry Roundtree was really showing us something. It would be different if Joshua Kelly was really showing us something. And, you know, we've seen glimpses here and there. It's like, all right, here's a nice 5-yard run. But other than that, like, it's just kind of been the same thing every week with those two, to the point where they just view them as like alternate healthy scratches, you know, every week. So
yeah,
I don't know. I would do it. I mean, look, they have 4 6-round picks next year. I would take it if, you know, to me, Marlon Mack is a pretty significant upgrade over, at the very least, Roundtree and Kelly. You know, you can make the argument that he's probably better than Jackson as well. You know, I'm not afraid of, you know, the Eagles and the Patriots, not the Patriots I'm a little afraid of, but the Eagles, the Steelers, and some of the games coming up. But at the same time, I do think they need a little bit of juice back there just for a change of pace back. And also so Austin Eckler doesn't have so much of the offense weighing on him. Because, you know, this is partially kind of why he has this hip injury, is like his usage rate is really high. So, like, if you could take it down a little bit and just have a couple more plays where Marlon Mack can be effective here and there and give Austin Eckler a breather once in a while, like, I don't think that's a bad idea. And, like, to me, out of all the trades that have been discussed on Twitter, Marlon Mack's probably one of the more realistic ones that I would consider.
Yeah, I've been kind of anti-trading for a running back. I don't believe in using those resources, especially after drafting 2 in the last 2 years. Like, but at the same time, like, those 2 players are not really showing enough. So I understand the thought process, right? I'm still a little hesitant. Marlon Mack, I think, would probably be the only one because we've seen him be a legitimate, you know, number 1 rusher in this league. I know he has the Achilles injury from last season, but by all accounts, he has been healthy and been, you know, looking good in practice. So it's just a tough situation. Like I had to laugh when the Texans essentially got a 2025 seventh round pick or whatever it was for Mark Ingram and like helped facilitate the trade for the Saints. It's like running backs are just not that valuable when it comes to trading stuff. So if you can get one for cheap, then sure, I guess why not? Because there's just no juice back there. And I think that the rushing attack when Eckler is out, there's no one that can really break tackles, right? Like that's the biggest thing. Like Eckler's so good after contact, and Jackson and Kelly just don't trust their vision. And then Roundtree, for whatever reason, I don't necessarily think it's a vision thing, but he just doesn't have the juice to make people miss in the hole. So there's a bunch of things going wrong in that room right now, and it is pretty unfortunate. So I guess so. Like, sign me up. The other trade though, Deshaun Jackson or Brandon Cooks have been linked to the Chargers several times. I still think the Brandon Cooks one is probably costs a little too much in terms of draft capital, but people don't realize how much value Deshaun Jackson would bring to this team. I understand, he's definitely not the same player, and Alex can speak to, his Eagles days, but he still would bring a lot more respect deep than Jalen Guyton is getting. So teams have kind of keyed in on Jalen Guyton, but they're not using him. So you bring in Deshaun Jackson, I think that's enough of an upgrade where I'm willing to do a 6th round pick, a 5th round pick, whatever, and get some more speed on this team and frankly open things up a little bit more. So I know a lot of people were writing about like, oh, it doesn't make sense, they don't need him. It's like, well, you're just gonna keep Jalen Guyton out there and Josh Palmer and not use them. So at least teams will respect Deshaun Jackson's speed and key in on him and open things up a little bit. So Deshaun Jackson, that one 100% sign me up.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny that like the whole time it was people were like, Deshaun Jackson only runs in a straight line. I'm like, they were getting 50-yard bombs last year with guys that only ran in a straight line and guys that like weren't that great, so like speed kills like in this league. Now as for specifically Deshaun Jackson, I'm a bit of a centrist on that one because I don't trust his health at this point.
Sure.
I think he's probably like going to play 2 games and blow out his hammy because that's how like every stop has been for him these last few years, unfortunately, even when he came back to Philadelphia when Wentz was there. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of mid on that. It could go either way. Cooks is a little bit more interesting to me because they could technically extend him and lower the cap hit next year, which people might be concerned about. And so that could be interesting. He's also not that old. He's only, 28. So if you give him like a 2-3 year extension, wouldn't really like hurt the team in a significant way. Plus you could re-sign Mike Williams and still do all that stuff. But yeah, I'm not against either one really. As far as Deshaun Jackson put out a tweet yesterday that was like, he is a raging anti-Semite, but 4-3 with good hands. I mean, we do need somebody like that on the team. So, my morals are bad. One of my favorite Deshaun Jackson games is, when Michael Vick got out of prison on Monday Night Football in a game called the Monday Night Massacre against the Redskins. So, football's problematic.
There's so many problematic things in the last 2 sentences you just said, like anti-Semitic, dog fighting, prison,
Redskins. Redskins isn't even the worst one there.
Oh my gosh. I mean, as far as those 2 guys go, I get the health concerns for Deshaun Jackson. He's not my favorite option, but I do want to see what they do this week to try to make things more aggressive, more explosive for them. If things change and Jalen Guyton is now like, oh, look, he's actually being used and they're hitting shots deep. Great. If not, then I guess it goes back to an issue of they're not scheming things. They're not trying different things. So even if they have Deshaun Jackson, would they do anything different? Is Jalen Guyton holding them back? I don't know. But I'm for Cooks. I get the issue of the draft capital to give up is a little high. If Solak's sort of going rate for him, which is like a 2nd and a 4th or a 2nd and a 3rd, whatever it is, that's a little high, but I'd be kind of interested in going for it. And I know people are worried about bringing back Mike Williams, Derwin James, whoever, but I think, especially after watching, the Chiefs and all these teams do gymnastics to try to work the cap, I think you can kind of make it work. And it's an all-in year. And it's not like they're getting Cooks and they have him for 4 more years. This is a very long contract. They got him for this year, which they can cover, I assume. And then next year, you just kind of make it work You bring your guys back, you work the cap. This is a very good team with very, really good at working the cap. And so I think they can rock with it. And the team's awful on first down. They have no explosiveness. They can't go anywhere. Always behind the sticks. So I'm for bringing in someone like Cooks. Jackson, obviously there's concerns, but he is cheap and it's only a 1-year deal or a 10-game deal, whatever it is. So I'm okay with that. I get the health concerns, but Cooks would be an interesting one because that would really give them a dynamic 3-receiver group. I know I'm not a huge fan of signing receivers in free agency, but I think a trade at this point to see what you got and maybe to extend him, make things work on the cap next year, I think it's worth it. I want to see this team be explosive on first down and see what that can do for them.
Yeah, I mean, Solak is definitely more connected than us, but I kind of doubt that he's gonna fetch a 2nd-round pick. Like I don't know. Maybe that's just me kind of, looking at the trade market and seeing all these other guys go for like 5th, 6th round, 7th round picks. Like if Stephon Gilmore gets a 2023 5th round pick, then there's no way that Brandon Cooks should be getting a 2022 second. So maybe that's just me, but I think whenever we're talking about these trades, like specifically Brandon Cooks, like I understand the cap constraints that people have or reservations, but he's a cap hit of like $2 million this year if you trade for him. And then, like Alex is saying, you can extend him and lower it. And the Chargers are going to have potentially $80 million in cap space next year.
Right.
Like, if there's ever a year to go get an expensive wide receiver 3, it's next year. Like, you go do that. You open things up for Justin Herbert in his, 3rd season as a starter. And, like, if you're a defensive coach and you're trying to stop an offense with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Brandon Cooks, and Austin Eckler, who are you trying to stop? Because all 4 of those guys are elite pass catchers at their positions. So I understand the concerns, but if you're really thinking that you're about to be Super Bowl contenders, I think you got to be aggressive and go make this trade. I understand everybody wants a like a defensive tackle. It's like you can kind of do both. Like you could reasonably trade for Brandon Cooks and then trade for get a 7th round pick for Andrew Billings from Cleveland. Like it doesn't have to be Cooks and Hicks. Like there are other options out there. You can do 2 different things.
2 trades is a lot for Telesco. Let's focus on one and then go from there.
Very true. Very true.
Oh, nice.
All right, we'll get to Envy's next question here. Shout out to Envy, always doubling up. What do you think Bill Belichick is going to take away from us on offense? And how do we protect ourselves on defense? So 2 different questions here. Alex, what do you think about the Belichick question first?
I think in terms of like offense, I think there's going to be a lot of man coverage that I'll try to run for sure. I mean, that's just kind of the team that the Patriots are. I think that they'll probably focus a lot of their stuff on Mike Williams just because he is such a mismatch with some of the corners they have, at least at the moment with his height. Like I said, if you get Mike Williams matched up on Jalen Mills, that becomes a problem. But yeah, so I think there's stuff like that where they could try to take him away and then, see what Keenan Allen is like. The Austin Eckler thing is really concerning because to me, that initially would strike me as the thing that Bill Belichick would try to take away. But now he can take something else away, right? If Austin Eckler isn't 100% or isn't playing. So yeah, I think it'll be one of the 2 receivers between Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and just say, hey, potentially both of them. And then say, hey, beat us with the other guys you have. So I definitely think that is probably the direction they'll go. But yeah, that's my initial thought, at least. Of course, Bill Belichick's Bill Belichick, and maybe he takes something else away. So, yeah.
Yeah, I wish I'd watched a little bit more of Mike Williams against Baltimore, although he didn't do much and he was hurt. So I don't know how often they try to take him away. But to me, it really looked like they tried to take away Keenan Allen. There was double coverage. There was sometimes triple coverage. It really seemed like that was the route they were going. Now, this time Williams will be healthy, whereas in the Baltimore game, he was hurt. So I think it's, potentially you could just kind of leave him alone because he's not 100%. But I think they'll try to take Keenan Allen away, especially if Eckler's not playing. And there's a reason. I mean, Allen has 4 catches on 4th down and Williams has 0. And I got the defensive pass interference call, but he has no catches on 4th down. So I really think the Chargers are going to, obviously go to Keenan Allen in those situations. And so Bill Belichick will try to take him away. So I do think of anyone on this team, even with Eckler on the field, it's Allen that they take away.
Yeah, I think that given their deficiencies of who they have, I think it makes the most sense to double team Keenan Allen because of who where he lines up and who they have against him. You have a former undrafted free agent, you have Jalen Mills, you have safeties. None of those are really good matchups, in my opinion, for Keenan Allen. At least on the outside, like at least JC Jackson is a legitimate corner who said some very questionable things this week about the Chargers, but that's another topic. But he's a top tier corner, right? He feasibly could match up with Mike Williams. I know there's a big size advantage there, but at least JC Jackson is a top tier corner. So I would think that they would try to double team Keenan Allen and take him away. But Bill, it always does crazy things. You never really know. Maybe he kind of puts 8 in the box and really just tries to stuff out the run. I don't know. But it's an interesting one. As for the defensive side of things, it all hinges on, Justin Jones. And I tweeted this out yesterday. I went back and watched the Washington game, the first half at least, to see like how they were using Justin Jones and how they were using everybody else. And Brandon Staley has talked all summer long, all training camp long, that he wants to be multiple in every sense of the word, right? Like he wants to do multiple personnel packages on offense and defense, mix up the schemes, blitz, stunt, everything. And I was like kind of blown away at how much more multiple they were able to be on defense with Justin Jones in the game. Like he was playing the one technique, Tillery was playing one technique. There was a heavy rotation. Covington only played 5 snaps in the first half because Jones was out there and healthy. They did this thing where they would put Justin Jones at the 5 technique and Joey Bosa as a wide 9 on the same side on obvious passing down situations. So that was a way that they were able to kind of scheme up one-on-ones for Joey Bosa. So I was kind of blown away at like how different they looked with Justin Jones healthy. So if he's out there and he's playing well, I think that's the biggest way that they can protect themselves, because now you're taking away snaps away from Tillery, away from Covington, away from Linval Joseph. You're keeping everyone fresh, and you have a player out there that you legitimately trust. And now Brandon Staley is saying that he thinks Christian Covington is essentially a starting caliber player for them. So how they play on defense tomorrow all hinges on Justin Jones, if he's healthy or not, in my opinion.
I got an adjustment for you on defense. Don't take your best cornerbacks off the field.
That too.
Also from Envy Talent, $5 saying that Staley said this morning. He said Eckler is likely to play. So I guess we'll see how that ages. From Thomas Martinez, any chance we see Bradwell elevated? Get a look before the deadline.
At this point, try it. At this point, you might as well. As sad as it is to say, as somebody who really liked Larry Roundtree and Joshua Kelly, coming out of the draft, like mix things up. At least with Darius Bradwell, you've got a guy who can legitimately break tackles because he's 230 pounds. He's just a hammer. So I don't know. Like at this point, I'm up for anything. They've kind of mixed things up at the defensive line without Justin Jones, Forrest Merrill, Braden Fajoko, Joe Gaziano. At this point, do the same thing with the running backs until you find somebody who's really gonna seize that job. Give everybody a chance.
Yeah, I'm totally up for different ways to circle the drain. I think maybe you just try that and see what works. Detrez Newsome, do we give him a call? Troymaine Pope? Fun to watch.
Honestly, bring Pope back.
Pope would actually be interesting. I actually think they should bring him back.
Yeah,
that's where
Pope would be kind of interesting and fun. So, I think if you have maybe some of these smaller backs that are a little bit more elusive, you could add something to it. Darius Bradwell, try it, but he is kind of the same thing as Larry Roundtree and Joshua Kelly. So we'll see, but I'm not against it at this point, because if you're not getting anything from those two, then don't keep trying something that's not working.
Yeah, in a sense, they're kind of the same in that, I think they Roundtree runs for tough yards and Bradwell can run for tough yards, but I thought Roundtree would do that more with kind of an attitude and with the way he plays, but it's not working. Whereas Bradwell just kind of has a size thing, and if you just can't stop that, you can't stop those. I think he can maybe get a little bit more, but right now I think Roundtree's the better running back talent. It's not working, so maybe some little bit more size will work for this team, especially with 2 redundant running backs, which has been the issue kind of all training camp.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. I'm kind of at a loss for words of why these 2 players are not playing well. Like Justin Jackson, I can kind of understand. There's been so many injuries. He just doesn't really seem to trust himself. But like you have these two bigger backs, and they're not playing like bigger backs. They're not breaking tackles. They have poor vision. There's poor execution. So I'm kind of at a loss for words there. So if it's Darius Bradwell as your guy, then go give him a shot. All right, next one here from our guy Bolt Brett. Do you think we'll see any obvious schematic adjustments from Staley, like loading up the box more, removing plays that don't work, etc.?
I think, considering they love Campbell and they want to keep Harris on the field, like I think Arjun talked about this, they should just go more dime, especially if Drew Tranquil is hurt. Throw Kaiser White out there, work with your defensive line rotation, and then just have all 6 DBs on the field. Why take anybody off other than Harris? But again, I haven't watched Harris, so I don't know how he actually looks. But Steven says he looks like crap, so I'll take his word for it. But if you're not going to pull him off the field, then just take the unhealthy Tranquil off the field, or no, keep him on the field if he's there. But if it's between like putting Ogbong Bamiga on the field or putting Michael Davis on the field, which is stupid, but here we are. Put Davis on the field. Like, don't play Ogbong Bamiga. Just put another DB on the field. No, I know that doesn't help their run game, but I think that you still get your best, most talented players on the field. So maybe they go that route if Tranquil is hurt. That's kind of all I can think of.
Yeah, I think like Steven said, it kind of goes back to the whole Justin Jones thing, because if you do get Justin Jones back, then you probably can't afford to have Michael Davis out there, even if he's a little bit more of a liability in the run game, and then definitely gives you an advantage over someone like Ogbong Bamiga or, say Neiman on the field, just having an extra DB there. But I think they're a little bit pinned right now if Justin Jones doesn't play, just because you probably have to have that linebacker on the field to stop the play. But again, I agree that it should not be Michael Davis being taken off the field when we talk about all those cornerbacks. So I think there's some adjustments they can make, but a lot of it is, to be honest, to me at least, just health and getting guys back. Kenneth Murray, assuming he comes back probably the week after this one. We'll see what happens there. Just getting Justin Jones back. And then, of course, that will, alleviate some of the pressure off of Joey Bosa and some of the other guys that are having to go a little bit more harder right now and getting triple teamed. Poor Bosa. I think that's definitely a start. Not that will fix everything. Definitely some schematic adjustments they can make, but I really think a lot of it is kind of just health right now.
Yeah, it's definitely health related. I'd be curious in this one in particular if we see Staley use that 6-man front a little bit more, because this is a game, the Patriots, like to, stack the box with their offensive, personnel going into 22, into, 3 tight ends, 2 running backs. Like they're a heavy personnel team. And so I'd be interested to see if we see that 6-man look with the 4 defensive tackles, 2 edge rushers, and then 1 linebacker and Derwin all in the box. Like we saw that a couple times versus the Raiders. I only saw it once against the Ravens. That one didn't really work out very well. That was when Le'Veon Bell scored his touchdown off the side. So I'm curious to see if that's like a possible adjustment, just kind of loading the box in that regard. In terms of the safeties, like Staley's going to stick to his too high shell and expect Derwin and Nasir Adderley, who is going to be back in this game, which is going to be a huge help, and Alohi Gilman to make plays from deep. And for the most part, Adderley and Derwin James and Alohi Gilman have really done that. So in terms of bringing people more in, more safeties into the box, I don't think we'll see that. But I think we could see more defensive linemen up at the line, which I think is a way to add more bodies there. And then on offense, like we've seen, or at least we've heard, Joe Lombardi and Brandon Staley mention the quarterback run game. They kind of want to, be more prolific on first downs. It's easier said than done right now with this personnel. So those are the 2 things that I think everybody was talking about on offense. I think the quarterback run game, I'm a big believer in how much of an advantage it gives you these days. Like we have looked at, Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts and all these running backs, Josh Allen, and their ability to run the football gives your team such an advantage, because you're taking away a player who's not blocking and adding an extra blocker into the line. So I think we could see that one happen. Maybe Justin Herbert gets like 5-6 carries this week, and I think that would help the rushing attack as well.
Yeah, I get trying to protect Herbert, but I mean, if you talk about if Staley wants to talk about the running game, even if it isn't like amazing, you want to challenge the physicality of the defense and try to be physical that way. I don't know if there's any more physical tackle you can make than Justin Herbert running full speed off a bootleg and some DB just stand, like Jalen Mills standing there trying to tackle Justin Herbert. Good luck. That's a big dude. You can kind of challenge him that way, or at least again be more multiple, be more physical. I'm all for the extra QB runs. 2-3 a game would be great. Just something else for them to have to look forward to.
It's just weird with the QB runs because it's kind of been successful every time they've done it, and they just decide not to do it again for the rest of the game. So, I hope they do it more. And, you have a 6'7" freak of nature back there. Like, if he can run people over like he did very publicly against the Chiefs last year, I think that's a, great thing that they could do. From Philip Casey A. Calloway. Do you guys see Steven Anderson being utilized as a fullback type player if Eckler is out? And my reaction to this question is, wow, Gabe Neighbors really fell out of the rotation, huh?
Well, Steven Anderson has been doing this. Like, this is not a new thing. So, as recently as Wednesday, Brandon Staley said that he gives them that tight end fullback flex, which they love. So he's lined up at fullback quite a bit. He's not carried the ball, which I think is more of Philip's question. Gabe Neighbors has, I think, gotten 3 carries this year. I think I might even be highballing it, but
sure.
If Eckler is out, I don't think that the solution is to put Anderson and Gabe Neighbors in rushing situations. I think the solution is use Justin Herbert more because that's probably the most effective way.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I was trying to find the stats that I had for Steven Anderson as a fullback. I can't find it. So, but no, as far as the question goes, yes, he's been a fullback, but no, I don't think he'll be used as a runner. They used him as like the extension of the run game and the flat sort of guy, not exactly the runner in the run game.
Yeah. So you guys are doing great with the super chats. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Keep
seriously.
up. All of the super chat donations will go towards Anthony Hopper's family.
Mm-hmm.
We've got one from Sean O'Brien. He says, cut Guyton, trade a 4th or a 5th for B Cooks. We kind of already talked about trading for B Cooks as somebody that we are in favor of. And I understand the frustration with Jalen Guyton, but you can't cut him. Like the whole point of trading for Brandon Cooks or Deshaun Jackson is to bring more speed to the table. If you trade for one of those guys and cut Jalen Guyton, you're just back to the same issue where you have one speedster. Like I'm trying to bring multiple speedsters to this team.
Yeah, and I mean, I get the frustration with him, but A, I don't think they're using him all that well, and B, he's a lower drop percentage than like 3 other guys on the team. So I know it's been frustrating. We know him as the guy who drops the ball a lot, but he's actually behind like Cook, Williams, and Allen, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
So let's see what he can do first. Let's see what they can do with him after the bye.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in favor of cutting him. I don't think there's any way that could work. I mean, you need him because all the other guys on the team run a 4.7. Like, I mean, you have a pretty desperate need for speed. So that even if you are going to bring Deshaun Jackson in or you're going to bring somebody else in, I think you still need Guyton at least for the rest of the season, and then maybe you can address things later. But yeah, no. As for trading a 4th or 5th for Brandon Cooks, sure, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. I was reading an article from The Athletic this week about receiving corps that were helping or hurting their quarterbacks. And the whole thing was about drops and drop percentages. And Justin Herbert was 29th in that statistic because The Athletic has credited Mike Williams with 5 drops, Keenan Allen with 4, and Jared Cook with 4, and Jalen Guyton with 2. So they credited the top 4 targeted receivers with 15 drops, which is obviously a big issue. Like, and it's not been an issue for Keenan and Mike before. Cook has had some issues with drops throughout his career, but we've not seen Keenan Allen and Mike Williams have this kind of issue. So there are definitely a lot of issues on early down, on the early down offense and the game plan and things like that. But a lot of it is that Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and Jared Cook are dropping passes at a crazy high rate right now. So they've got to clean that up too.
Yeah, and I even think that when it comes to drops, that the numbers should be a little higher. I feel like some have gone more like against Herbert, if you will. I feel like there should be more drops. For them to be at 15 counted ones so far, like through 6 games, like that's quite a bit. That's more than I expected.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of these drops come on like pretty high importance plays too, like third down or fourth down, like, you know, so if you're having that situation as well, that definitely just makes the situation much worse than it is. I do think there will be a little bit of a regression to the mean kind of, you know, in the back half of the season where you start to see Keenan Allen, obviously, hopefully not dropping the ball. You start to see Mike Williams come back a little bit to earth in that regard as well. I don't think they're going to stay above 10% the rest of the season. Otherwise, we have problems. But I think that they will sort of regress in a positive way to the point where they're not dropping balls. This one comes from Envy Talent again. Shout out for all the work he's putting in today. In regards to special teams play, if that unit continues to struggle, do you still see us winning with a winning record? Moreover, also making the playoffs.
Yeah, so I expect the special teams to improve. Like, you know, their DVOA rankings right now are pretty much being dragged down by the field goal and extra point unit as well as the kickoff return unit. Mm-hmm. So I expect those to go up. I expect them to improve. You know, Justin Hopkins is not going to be missing 5 extra points in 6 games and be bad on field goals as well. So I expect those units to improve. I expect Andre Roberts to provide a boost. Like he's not going to be returning the ball to the 15-yard line like the other guys are. So how much they improve, I don't really know. You know, I don't really know how much juice Roberts has at this point in terms of being, you know, an all-pro receiver like he's been, or returner, excuse me, like he's been. But I expect them to improve. And, you know, I definitely think that they can overcome the special teams and have a winning record. That's more so concerning about making a run in the playoffs, in my opinion. But I still expect them to make the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the special teams have sucked and they're 4-2 with this schedule. So I think they can still have a winning record. They can totally still make the postseason. But as you said, once you get there, can you be perfect enough to not drop games because of special teams against the Titans, Chiefs, whoever is in the postseason?
Right. I mean, I think at this point, they're going to have a boost on their special teams strictly because it's Dustin Hopkins and Andre Roberts and not KJ Hill and Tristan Vizcaino. So, like, you know, can that get you from 32nd to 25th, 24th? Sure. Like, I think that can get you there, at least in the short term. You know, assuming no missed extra points and assuming no kick returns to, like, the 10-yard line or accepting punt returns at the 2. So, you know, there's that kind of stuff. But the big thing that really needs to improve for DVOA is the punt blocking, because they're getting Tylan killed back there, and also just coverage and all that, coverage and blocking in general. Like, that's really, to me, also another thing that's bringing their DVOA down in terms of special teams. So
the punt unit is their best ranking on DVOA.
What qualifies as their best ranking?
It's 16th. It's right at average. The punt unit is the only unit of the special teams unit that's been average.
Well, but how is that calculated though? Because, like, for example, the time that they got Tristan or Tylan killed against Dallas, that resulted in a 15-yard penalty. So, like,
I'm just telling you what the numbers say. Like, the punt unit has been average for them.
I think it's been a little bit below average, but that's just me. Their blocking and coverage still needs to get better. Like, I'm happy that they made the changes they did, but, like, to me, that will move the needle in special teams DVOA as well. Sure. At least if we want to see this team as like a top 16 special teams team, that's the thing that needs to happen more than anything else.
Yeah, and to Tyler's point the other day about pressure off the edge on the field goal unit, I think that argument can safely be put to bed now, because we've heard from an actual NFL kicker and a current special teams coordinator say that should not matter for kickers basically whatsoever. So I think that argument should be put to bed now. All right. We got another super chat question from Jeff. Not really a question. He says, "Yo, Alex, where's the pink shirt? Why do I even watch?"
It's not victory pink yet. They have to beat the Patriots. You know, we're on to New England, as Bill Belichick would say.
Okay, so the pink shirts it's a victory. it's a victory tradition then. Like
yes,
victory
it's a
brisket.
victory tradition, or if I don't feel like doing my laundry.
Very good, very good. So shout out to Jeff for donating. He's been awesome. I think Jeff was one of the first people that donated, if I'm not mistaken, towards Anthony's cause. So again, guys, we'll wrap this up in a few minutes, but if you have any last questions, be sure to use the super chat, and we will be sure to send those on over to Anthony's cause.
If you believe in a little bit of, not conspiracy, but fishiness, Melvin Ingram was limited practicing all week, but then he did not practice and now out with a groin injury. It could be a groin injury or something's on the way.
He's getting traded to the Cardinals.
Yeah, I think he's getting traded. Man, the Cardinals just, that game was wild, first of all, but the JJ Watt thing was crazy. Like that was Justin Jones' situation escalated to 100.
Yeah, no kidding. And ended up being what is his shoulder, his like other shoulder, his collarbone, his forearm. Like it was a nasty injury apparently.
Yeah,
that guy.
I mean, I just feel bad for him at this point because he is such a dominant player, but his health just isn't there. So I'll be curious to see if they bring him back next year, or if he's still going to play next year, because it seems like his body's just taken a beating to the point of no return over the last few years. I don't know.
Looking for any other. Somebody was asking about defensive tackles in the draft, and I haven't really watched any draft film, but every Twitter clip I see of those two Georgia boys is like unreal. And there's two of them. It's not just Jordan Davis, who I think is actually getting Heisman buzz right now, which is crazy.
Wow.
But he's got a teammate. I think his name is Devontae Wyatt. He was on Bruce Feldman's freak list, which is very hard to get on, if you're a college football player. And he's legitimate too. And he could actually be more of the 4-eye 3 technique that I think they need more so than the nose tackle. Because I feel like we're seeing kind of a renaissance with nose tackles right now. But at the same time, like you could bring back Linval Joseph on a cheap deal. You could go sign somebody else, Andrew Billings. Whereas I think the 3 technique and 4-eye is a little bit more valuable. So, I mean, obviously, like I said, I haven't watched any film. We'll dive into the draft much later, but I'm a little more interested in Jordan Davis's teammate at this point for a Chargers draft pick.
I will say I had more fun watching Shelvin than probably any other player in the past draft. If you can tell me that there's someone better like Davis, I am really excited to watch him.
Yeah. I think if Shelvin had played and not opted out, we'd probably be talking about him in the same way. Because that dude just, the way that he took on the Georgia offensive line in that game, like blew my mind.
And they're not playing him, I'm pretty sure, in Cincinnati.
They are not.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because that seemed like a really big need for Cincinnati, but they found ways for their defense to kind of live without him. And now you can sort of develop and make your defense even stronger in the long term. So they're going to be a scary team, unfortunately.
All right, got one more super chat question from Thomas Martinez. He says he has a bone to pick. Josh Palmer was open on that 4th down versus Baltimore. He broke off his route at the marker, created separation on Humphrey, and Herbert just missed him. And I agree with that statement. I think Josh Palmer ran a good route. I don't disagree with the decision to target him. He did create separation. For whatever reason, Herbert threw the pass kind of like it sailed on him a little bit more inside and a little bit more downfield, whereas he should have thrown it towards the sideline and back a few yards, because that looked like, it looked like Palmer was running a comeback route. It looked like Herbert was expecting him to kind of run like a hitch route towards the inside.
I don't disagree, but I also feel like 4th down is your money down, and you kind of got to get it to your money guys in some way. Like, no offense to Josh Palmer, like I think he can eventually be that guy for the Chargers, of course, but like you got to find Keenan Allen, you got to find Mike Williams, Austin Eckler potentially in a 4th down. Like, also, I do think it is specifically the fact that they had Humphrey covering him and Herbert throwing in that direction. I thought the decision-making from him was a little bit erratic that game. So, again, if Palmer catches that ball or Herbert throws it a little bit better, are we talking about it? Probably not as much. But I
Sure.
still think that's a decision that could have been made a little bit better. Like, I don't know, this goes back to like just analyzing the thing for what it is rather than, just not talking about it because it ended up a certain way, right? Like
Yeah.
the Skyno missed extra point against the Browns or like any of that stuff. It's a bit of a more process over results thing, I guess.
Yeah, if I had a bone to pick, like Thomas said, with anything, it's just the execution from Herbert. The decision is okay with me, especially because Palmer did convert on something pretty similar earlier in the game. I think it was a third down or second down or whatever, and
Yeah.
pretty much the same thing on the sideline. Looked really good, got way open. So him going back to Palmer in the situation sort of makes sense. But then, like you said, find somebody else, get it some other way. I don't know what Baltimore was showing at that time. I don't know if it was like, well, this guy looks like he's going to be covered, so I can't really go that way or whatever. But yeah, I don't mind the decision. I don't mind going to Palmer. I don't mind going for it on fourth down. It's just the execution. Herbert just flat out didn't execute in a kind of a bad way in a lot of his throws against the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, like we said, there were definitely some drops, but that particular one, Herbert missed him. There were a lot of people that got mad at them going after Humphrey so much, and then literally the next week, Jamar Chase gave him the business. So I think at the end of the day, when you're designing offenses, like you're trusting your guys to get the job done. And especially if you have Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. I know that they didn't really use Keenan very much or Mike that often, but if you have guys that you trust, then they should be able to beat coverage, and anybody can be had. And that includes Marlon Humphrey. He's not Darrelle Revis. So I didn't have as much of an issue as everybody else at the way that they targeted against Marlon Humphrey. That play specifically. Sure, I would have loved to see Keenan Allen involved there or Mike Williams, but people were like so up in arms about them going after Marlon Humphrey, and it's like, well, you have Mike Williams against Marlon Humphrey 1-on-1. Yeah, Justin Herbert's going to take that. So anybody can be had in this league.
The only thing I'll say about that is that Mike Williams was clearly pretty injured throughout that whole game.
Sure.
So unlike Jamar Chase, I think the health plays a factor there. And then you have someone like Keenan, who is very good, but he's not like the dominator type receiver that either Chase or Williams are. So to me, that would be my thing with targeting Humphrey as much as they did. But then again, if you have an opportunity, take it. And, maybe we're not talking about it as much as if some balls weren't dropped. And that was a huge problem against Baltimore as well.
Yeah. I will say this game, the Patriots run a ton of man coverage. They do a lot of cover one robber. And so you're going to have similar situations where your guys have to get open. And I think the usage needs to be a little bit different, right? Like we saw against Washington, they used Keenan Allen in motion quite a bit. And I don't remember that really happening very much against Baltimore. So it's going to be a lot of man-to-man coverage, and you're going to have to win, whether you're Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, or Josh Palmer. I think depending on what Bill Belichick does, this is a big game for Josh Palmer too, because he is going to be single covered whenever he's in the game. Same with Jalen Guyton, same with Jared Cook. All these secondary players need to step up in this one. All right. So NV Talent sent us another one. That guy, man, shout out to you, dude. You're crushing it. Much love to the Bolt fam, waiting on that victory brisket on Monday. So, we love doing these things, right? Because we know that everybody goes through hard times and needs help sometimes. So, Anthony, we love you, man. Thank you for all your support throughout the year and a half that we've been doing this show. Hopefully, you're able to use some of these funds and get out of this rut a little bit. So, thank you everyone for your support today, and I know Anthony really appreciates that as well.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Everybody came through. Thank you to my parents, obviously, for chipping in, and then the rest of the Bolt fam, and for basically matching that at that point. $10, $5, $20, a lot of different people. Some similar faces that we're used to, some new faces. It means a lot. I mean, it's really nice to have this platform to be able to do this, whether it's just donating our own money, doing giveaways, or just bringing awareness and having you guys donate here. We're going to send it to him as soon as we're done. So this is really, really cool. Thank you, everyone, for donating. This is awesome.
I haven't counted the numbers, but I believe they were at 1,700 or so before we started, and so we might be at 2,000 now. So that's a great deal that you guys were willing to donate that much, and were willing to step up when you were needed. So we really appreciate it, and I know Anthony does too.
Yeah, and really quickly going back to Tyler's point, because Tyler has a giveaway opportunity as well. If you donate, Tyler, you want to explain that a little bit and where people can find it?
Yeah, so I'll go through here and count up who was sending in money. So, but the giveaway is a signed Justin Herbert jersey. Now, that is only if he reaches his goal. If he reaches his goal, anyone who donated $5 or more will be entered to win a signed Justin Herbert jersey. However, if they don't reach that goal, I'll think of something else, maybe something at halfway or whatever. So right now, the big goal is anyone who donates $5 or more will be entered to win a Justin Herbert jersey that's signed. But if we don't reach that goal, I'll find something else because you guys have been amazing so far. And that's on my, you can find me. I mean, you're good. If you want to do it on here, I'll just count, like if you donated, you're good. If you want to do it on Twitter, just screenshot like your GoFundMe donation or whatever and comment it under my, I'll pin it to my Twitter. Just comment underneath with the picture of your name and the donation to the GoFundMe or Cash App. Someone DM'd me and said that they contacted Anthony and said, hey, I don't have a GoFundMe, but I do have a Cash App. Do you have that? So do Cash App, whatever works for you. However you donate, $5 or more, just enter. But anything you can do helps, guys. So anything you're doing is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So, excuse me. I think that's going to do it for us today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the videos, comment. We did a bunch of different videos this week. It was a busy week of interviews. So please go check those out. And we've got another busy week of interviews next week, which is going to be really fun. Alex in particular has a very fun interview that he gets to do by himself. So really excited to see how that one goes. As always, if you're listening to this on the audio version, we got another special chat or super chat right at the buzzer. So thank you, Grumpiness. Go Bolts. If you're listening to this on audio, please leave us a rating or a review on your podcast platform of choice. And we do really appreciate all the positive feedback. And as always, bolt up. We'll see you guys on Monday.
See you guys.
After you take Brandy to the prom, you coming back to school with shades on your head.
Literally looks like a jersey that you would leave out on the side of the street to get picked up by the garbage company like the next day.
Me and Matt say we're 6'4", but I think we're each probably an inch shorter than that.
Me rounding up hurts nobody, helps everybody.
Basketball tales so strange, you didn't know that you didn't know them. So listen up, y'all. It's NBA Storytime, available wherever you get your podcasts.